Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Hud Grad Club, our podcast celebrating the University of Huddersfield alumni community. Now, you're watching the podcast. If you're listening, you can't see this, but if you're watching, you will be thinking, okay, this is a slightly different setting to what we have normally for the podcast. The reason for this is we're being hosted today by our friends at Mamas and Papas. So we're delighted to be at their head office in Huddersfield itself. And if you're not familiar with Mamas and Papas, you should be. So they've got very close ties to the university. So they are a company formed in Huddersfield in 1981. The head office is right here. And now a global organisation employing more than 1,000 people, around 1,000 people, in the Nursery and Baby Product category, both designing and creating those products and also having retail outlets across the country as well. So we're absolutely delighted to be here today. As we say, this company have got very, very close ties to the university, and this brings us very nicely to the topic of the podcast. We are delighted to be joined by 5 members of the Mamas and Papas team, all of whom graduated from the University of Huddersfield, and we're going to be spending this podcast talking all about their experiences and their journeys. And to kick this off, we're going to just start with some very basic introductions. So we're going to come to each of you in turn, ask you, obviously, to give us your name, tell us about when you graduated from the university, what degree you studied, and then to tell us about your job role here at Mamas and Papas. So let's kick it off.
Hello, I'm Nichola. I graduated in 1991. I studied business studies, and my role here at Mamas and Papas is Head of Business Change.
Hi everybody, I'm Tracy. I am a Learning Experience Manager here at Mamas and Papas. I graduated from the University of Huddersfield in 1994. Having done 2 qualifications actually. I did a certificate in education and I also did a degree in hospitality management.
Hi, I'm Helen. I studied textile design and graduated in 2008. And here at Mamas and Papas, I'm one of the baby bear designers.
Hi, I'm Amy. I did accounting and finance at Huddersfield and I graduated in 2009. And at Mamas and Papas, I'm the financial controller.
Hi, I'm Georgina. I graduated just 2 years ago in 2022. I studied fashion brand marketing and I am the product marketing executive here at Mamas and Papas.
Fantastic. Well, what a lineup of guests we've got today. So many different experiences to kind of get through. Not a huge amount of time. So we're going to kind of kick straight on with the podcast. And the first thing that we always kind of ask people on the Hud Grad Club is about their greatest Hud story. So their experience of the University of Huddersfield, what that was like, any kind of key memories or special memories from their time studying. So, Nichola, we're going to start with you first. What is your Hud story you'd like to share with us on the podcast?
Oh, there were loads, but I thought the one I'd share with you was I was a member of the RAD committee. Now, the RAD committee, way back when in the 1980s, was actually all about raising money for charity. And we had lots of events during the year, charity events, lots of parties, etc., etc. But the highlight of the year in the last term, in term 3, was a RAD parade that we organised through town, which would end up with a big party in the park, Greenhead Park, afterwards. So this event was months in the planning, okay? We are talking to haulage companies to get the lorries. We are talking to the council about road closures. We're working with the police so that they can actually close the roads. We're working with all the different student societies so they each had a float each, and all the sports societies and how they decorate their floats, the music on the floats. You can imagine, okay? So one Saturday morning, we all arrive at an industrial park just on the outskirts of town to get our floats decorated, and everybody arrives and they get on, and there's a real buzz in the air, a real party atmosphere. Now, this parade was due to leave at 1 o'clock. And we had to leave on the dot at 1 o'clock because the road closures were planned that way. 5 to 1, the police come up to me and say, "I'm very sorry, but this isn't going ahead." And I said, "Why?" And then they said, "You're not allowed any alcohol on the floats if you're going through town. And what's more, if you are to go ahead, it all has to be removed by 1 o'clock. Well, I had 5 minutes to get an incredible amount of alcohol off all these floats. Okay. Have you ever tried persuading students to give up their alcohol?
Don't think I'd risk it, yeah.
No, okay. Can I just say, lots of negotiation, influencing, and a promise of it being returned afterwards. I mean, my car, I don't know how the suspension managed because it all went in my car, but we got away. And we had an amazing event. We raised loads of money for charity. We had a big party in the park with the alcohol delivered back to them afterwards, etc., etc. But I suppose the reason I picked this example is a classic example. I'd say try anything at university, get involved, because the amount of skills you pick up there and the stories you have to share at interview are great, because there's so many lessons learned there. And those things, they take you through your working life. Now, I think you've only just mentioned, I organised the annual sports day, and it's similar kind of thing, isn't it? So yeah, that would be my memory.
Excellent. Great way to kick off the greatest Hud story section. And we're getting a bit of early career advice in as well, which is brilliant. Tracy, we'll come to you.
Well, I'm going on alcohol. I brought along my Crocs. This was my ticket to my graduation ball, which I'm reliably informed by everybody else was quite unusual back in 1994. So for the whole uni experience, I would say that that's probably one of the best things. I think all that hard work and effort at university to go to something like that at the end, I know it's taken for granted now, was so much so I kept the ticket.
In very good condition.
I have to say. Can I do one more short one?
Absolutely.
When I did my certificate in education, we were residential at Hollybank, which isn't there now, and it's a site out of Huddersfield. And it had got two lots of students in there, people that wanted to teach in further and higher education and kids that wanted to teach in school. So this is down to teach people a lesson early. And they used to do the thing, the kids at the time used to run around with water pistols, and they'd knock on your door and then spray you with a water pistol, which really annoyed you. Anyway, this one day, and they always did it, they were very predictable at the same time. This one day there was a knock on the door, I opened the door, he's there, and I just took the whole bucket of water on him and shut the door. So then always be prepared. Whatever is coming, always be prepared. And then
Excellent. We do love a prop. Thank you so much for reading those. Helen, over to you.
When I was at uni, so doing textile design, it was where it started. We did print, weave and knit and learned lots of different things about all those different textile areas. And then as the years went on, we specialised. So by the final year, it was really nice because the knit group that I became, that was my specialism, was really small. So it was really nice, very close knit. So that was really lovely that there was about 12 of us in by final year that became really close, and we're always in the workshop creating these fabrics, and that was really lovely. And we all helped each other get through final year. And then also I've just kind of wanted to say that I did a placement year, like a sandwich year in my third year, where I went to Leicester and designed socks for a year. So whenever would you really have the opportunity to do that unless being given that through university? And that was really fun. In Leicester, in design environment, was taken to meetings at London and other customers, and even managed to go on shopping trips to Amsterdam. So as a not even a graduate, that was really great experience.
And do you ever see your socks anywhere now you're out and about?
Not so much now, but all the time I had the Father's Day sock that was in every Tesco's across the country. And I was like, I did that.
Excellent, great story. Amy, over to you.
So, like Nichola said, there were so many, but I'm going to focus mine on more. I actually lived at university, so I met many walks of life, and my most memories is meeting all these people, going out, talking to them, and believe it or not, guys, I was very shy, but I'm not anymore. This allowed me to basically can speak to anyone, talk to anyone, and be confident within that. And I think just by being out of my comfort zone, that allowed me to do it. But while out and singing on karaoke, the Huddersfield Choir asked me to sing for them. So my memory is actually singing in St. Paul's, and we did the last night of the proms. I got my dad to come because I was really proud. I was in a ball gown and everything. So that's one of my favourite memories. But also because the people I lived with were musicians, they were also in the orchestra. So it was a really nice end of the year thing for me. So
it's amazing how many people graduates who've done the podcast who kind of talk about, coming back to your point as well, Nichola, about trying things, like things they maybe wouldn't have tried and what that led to. So yeah, it's really, really great story. And last but not least, Georgina, over to you.
So my time at uni was probably a bit different from the rest of you, as it was at the time when we went into the COVID lockdown. So halfway through my first year, that's when we sort of went into the lockdown. I think it was the March time. And a lot of my course was based around photography and planning campaigns around the photography that we'd done. So this campaign, this project that we were on with, it was when the time we went into lockdown, and it involved having to do a photo shoot. So I had to set up a tripod with my phone on in the garden and take a photo shoot of myself to do my project for my university work, and it was highly embarrassing, and I do not want to look back at it. But it was a funny memory. So yeah.
But luckily it's only being shared on a podcast, so it was okay. No, and you're exactly right to say, yeah, such a different experience, I guess, kind of going through that compared to what you might have had, but obviously came through it out the other side and do really well now. So it's great to hear. We're going to kind of move on now to talk a little bit more about where we are now. So as mentioned, people watching can see behind us, we are at Mamas and Papas head office. All of you, of course, have ended up here at Mamas and Papas at various different sort of stages of your career. And as we've kind of seen from the introductions, all coming from slightly different sort of degree backgrounds, subject sort of areas, interest areas, all these types of things. So I'm really interested to kind of find out, I suppose, number one, what brought you here to Mamas and Papas, and then number two, what you enjoy about working here. So, Georgina, we're going to kick straight back to you, if that's okay. And as you said, most recent member of staff here. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so when I came out of uni, well, it was probably before I finished, I think I felt like a huge amount of pressure to find a job, like be really successful and just get like working straight away. And in hindsight, I feel like I didn't need to do that. And I should have taken more time to just think and decide what I want to do. But anyway, I started working in, because my course had lots of different areas in it. So we learned about like lots of different things like buying, design, all sorts of different things. And I chose one of the areas that I'd learned about, and it ended up that it wasn't for me. So anyway, I ended up working for a few months in that and leaving, and I just wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And I came across the job advert for this job on LinkedIn. And then when I was reading through it, I thought, oh yeah, I did that at uni. I really enjoyed doing that at uni. And just like lots of things within the job is things that I enjoyed that I did at uni. So I thought, well, I'm going to apply for this and see if I get it. And I did. And that's how I started working here. And I really enjoy everything that I do, really. I work in the product marketing team, so we do lots of photography. And then we plan campaigns around all the photography that we've done. And it's just really nice to then like go into store and be able to see like photography that you've done in the window and all the work that you've put in, like coming to life, really.
And did you know much about the company before?
Yeah, I did. Well, I live local to the area and I've got younger sisters that are quite a bit younger than me. And I remember coming to the factory store with my mum and to go shopping with my mum to buy things for my younger sisters when they were being born. So yeah, I used to come here quite a bit when I was younger. So it's really nice.
So had you a connection already? That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Fab. Helen, you mentioned obviously designing socks on placement, now being a baby wear designer. So I guess how does that differ and what brought you in the first place over to?
So I guess since leaving university, I've worked lots of different places across the country for different suppliers and other brands, but I happened to always be anywhere else except Yorkshire. And then it got to the point where I was like, I just want to be in Yorkshire. It's actually a really nice place to live. And then I did see that a job came up at Mamas and Papas, and I was like, is it Huddersfield? That's in my hometown. And it was doing children's wear designs. I've always loved children's wear design, and I've got a background in knitwear design as well. So that's sort of happened previously. And there's a lot of knitwear that happens here, as well as lots of multi-product. So I just came for the interview and absolutely loved it. I thought, I really want to get the job. Came, got the job, and I've actually ended up working here twice. So I've worked here a few years ago, and then I've actually come back again. So I've been here about almost 3 years again now. So
Can't keep you away.
Can't keep me away, yeah. Yeah, and no, it's work with a nice bunch of people, and everyone across the building's really lovely. And the product's nice as well, so there's a lot of attention to detail that goes into it, but I think you can tell when you see the product in store how that's been executed and all the time and effort that goes into it.
And what's that sort of like? So being a baby wear designer, what does that kind of involve, I guess, for people that are maybe less familiar with that?
So I guess it's like the full process. So we start at the sort of trend level. So look at and work into trends. We also do shopping. So we do get to go to Paris and London on shopping trips, which everyone's always, oh, you get to go shopping. But it's actually, it's a really tough time. It's really but it's a lot of looking at really beautiful brands and kind of getting in the mindset of, if I was buying these clothes or wanting to gift these clothes or put them on a small little baby, like what would the customer want, what would I want, and how do you kind of see that vision pulling together? So there's lots of fabrics and colour and detail, and just kind of having sort of Mamas and Papas has its own aesthetic as well. So it's just making sure that thread is always in there as well.
Another good joke. There we go. We're two now.
Yeah, so it's very inspirational, and it is hard work because there's lots of seasons kind of overlap as well. So we'll be working on, say, an autumn-winter range as well as like the spring-summer productions happening at the same time. So you get to see design, but I work closely with the buying department and the technical department. So on our floor it's nice and open plan, so we get to work with lots of different people. Yeah.
Good stuff. Thank you very much. Tracy, we can come to you next. Now, I think earlier you were saying you're not from Yorkshire originally. So how did you kind of, what I guess, encouraged you to sort of stay around and then end up working with Mothers?
I guess for me, because my degree's in hospitality management, I only ever wanted to be the best waitress in the world, I have to say this. But then I decided back in the day, because it was a while ago, that we needed a little bit more diversity for women, because back then, in the career I was in, there wasn't such an opportunity. So I think taking that aside, with all of that stuff, what I decided to do was focus my career, I suppose, on developing people, but traditionally in the hospitality sector. So I only came to Mamas and Papas about 18 months ago. So it's a move out of something I knew a lot and developing people in a hospitality background. So what I've loved here and what brought me here, one was the challenge of actually still developing people, but in a different sector. So that's been really exciting for me. There was loads to do. So Mamas and Papas is quite a sort of turbulent sort of time. So it's now on a massive lift. So we've got lots of new people coming in the business. So there was a great opportunity for me to come in here, work with all of our people and designing, learning and development that works for the business, but also to encourage people to continue their own development. And that's been really important to me. So I love Mamas and Papas for the ethics and the fact that we can make a real difference for the people here. That's really quite important.
And what's that sort of been like for you, having come from sort of, as you said, hospitality management? It's coming into a different industry. I think a lot of people would probably think, wow, that must be quite a big change. But have you found that it's actually the transition been okay?
I think the pressure points are the same. Yeah. So if you think we serve customers, they serve customers in hospitality, you're just serving them with different things. And I think, the time that you might have a little bit more time in this environment to talk to your customer, but still we're serving a fabulous product to customers and we need to do that right. And then we need to develop all of our teams to feel passionate about that. So we've done lots of work around our brand and our purpose. So our passion for parenting, we talk about passion for people internally. So my remit's been to support that.
As you say, wherever you're doing it, you're looking at developing people, encouraging, supporting.
Yeah.
And Amy, kind of coming over to you, I guess, are there sort of similarities there because you're from obviously a finance background? And I guess when we sometimes sort of talk to students, maybe even early career graduates, people might not always think about, if I work in finance, I might come and work for a nursery and baby product company. So what was your sort of journey like?
So you're right in what you say. So when you're doing your finance degree or when you're doing anything in finance, because I did A-level as well, they always focus on the top four. They're always focused about practice and not in industry. So basically I did Helen a sandwich course and I did a year in industry as a purchase ledger clerk, which is, I always think is the best bit in finance because it learns the cogs of how the finance function works. And like Georgina said, I came out of university in a recession, I need a job. But luckily my placement kept me on, so I had that job, but they didn't offer a study contract and I knew I wanted to be a qualified accountant. So missed an opportunity to become the finance assistant at Mamas and Papas, just completely missed that there was a role. But then saw a purchase ledger clerk. Now at the time I was a finance assistant, so it was a step back, but I thought get in the door of a good company, work hard, show your potential and the opportunities might arise, and it's exactly what happened. I ended up becoming finance assistant, I went for a study contract, and then I became management accountant, left, and came back because it's such a good company. Everybody always comes back. Yeah, literally, I came back as financial controller, and I just love this company. I love what it stands for. I love the people and the fight that everybody has, and I love how we are actually a family, and it is about family. So yeah, that's why I'm here.
And you know, I guess if we've got sort of finance students or graduates who might end up sort of watching or listening to the podcast, what's it kind of like working in a finance-related role within a company like this compared to maybe what perception is of what you might be doing? Is it actually a bit, I guess, like Tracy was saying, quite transferable, or?
Definitely transferable. So when I left to go back to another company, I was worried that I just knew mamas and papas, but literally I could take the skills and take it, and then take your experience with you. So you can transfer it. But I would say in industry, working for a company, you get exposure to so much more to do, areas that you wouldn't normally get involved with, projects you probably wouldn't get involved with. There's always a finance person, as Nichola will probably tell you, on the project committee when we're doing projects. It might not be me, but so I think in industry, you just get a lot more experience.
Yeah, I think it's such an important point because so often we talk about perhaps that lack of awareness that in almost every business, you're going to have all these functions that you need to run a business. Yeah. So actually, there could be a role in there for you. So I think we're seeing some really good examples of that.
And cross-function as well. You might start off in finance and then you might become the CEO, or you might go into operations because you're working in all them areas. You might find that area of because it's control, finance control. You might like that area of control and focus on that area.
So you don't need to be limited to one. Brilliant. Last but not least, Nichola, so we talked a bit about change over the last kind of sort of couple of minutes. So this is almost an ideal point to finish on for this segment. As head of business change, tell us a bit, I guess, about how did you end up here at Mamas and Papas, and what do you enjoy about the work you do?
Okay, so my early career was in buying and merchandising and other operational roles across retail. Great experience. But what I wanted to do, due to some lifestyle changes let's talk about it. You know, I was getting late 30s. I wanted a family. Okay, I needed something that was UK based. And I had the opportunity to go into change management and actually absolutely loved it. Totally met my skill base. But also all the experience I'd built over the previous sort of 20 odd years played into the role. Let me explain a bit about what business change does, because a lot of people don't know. I suppose when something's new, it's tricky. We want to change something, and particularly where it covers more than one part of the business. So it's a cross-functional activity. Usually it's something that I would help manage that change through the business. And you might be thinking of project management. Yes, it's that, but it's more than that. I suppose while you have tools and techniques that you might take out of your bag to use to help to implement that change, it's also understanding all the change that's happening in the business, because you don't want any change over here conflicting with any change over there, understanding the risks and the cost of change. But the big part is taking people through that change. Okay, so it's a really big people role too. Why do I like it? Because I get to do the new stuff, the tricky stuff. It's always challenging. And why do I like doing it at Mamas Papas? I tell you why I love doing it here is that there is an appetite to try something new. Everybody's receptible to change. We might not know how to get there, and we don't know the journey we're going on. But, you know, the people want to get on the bus, and that's the main thing. They have the right attitude. Also, we don't have to do it a set way, okay? So we might be a big company, but actually we celebrate everybody being an individual, at trying new things, trying it a different way. And that is so refreshing, because sometimes in the really big corporate companies, you have to do it according to the manual, and that can be really restrictive. So that's why I really enjoy change at Mamas and Papas.
And I think I'm right in saying you've been able to kind of leverage what you were talking about in your story earlier in terms of that kind of management of kind of events or sort of campaigns into a role that you've done recently, quite an important role of chief judge.
That's right. Oh, yes. For the big event of Mamas and Papas. Okay. Yes. We have a summer party. And part of that summer party is that we have a very serious sports day. I mean, we're talking egg and spoon race, sack race, etc., etc. 14 teams. It all gets a bit competitive, but lots and lots of fun. Yes, yeah, it's a typical, and that's just typical. The more skills you pick up is your degree is really important, the study is really important, the technical stuff, but just pick up as much as you can. Have a go.
Yeah, that's it. I think it's so nicely to that message that you mentioned earlier, because I think we're often trying to encourage that approach of, try things while they're there, particularly when you're in that infrastructure where there's maybe more opportunities than when you've kind of left. And it leads really nicely on really to the final kind of section of the podcast, which is our underrated careers advice section. So every time we kind of run these podcasts, we always ask guests to think of particular nuggets of wisdom that have maybe sunk in with you as you've moved through your career, but, at any particular stage, things you think, actually, if I'd known then what I know now, that would have been really useful, or just things that you might think could be helpful for any students, early career graduates, or anyone else who might be watching or listening to the podcast. So, Amy, we're going to come to you first. What is your underrated careers advice you'd like to share?
So, personally, I would say don't be pigeon-toed. So what I mean by this is, like Georgina said, when you leave, it's just like, I've left university, what do I do next? So I would say take the time, research, think about what you do, think about what you enjoy, look at what you want to do going forward. And even if you do say, take a career path and you think, this is where I'm going to go, but actually it's not working for you, then take a different path. You're never too old to do anything new. And any setback you get, so you might go for job interviews and you might not get your dream role, but any job interview or any setback you get, it's just giving you resilience and the courage to tread forward, to just, like Nichola says, have a go, keep at it, and you will get there.
Yeah, no, it's such a good point. I think, Georgina, you mentioned earlier as well that idea that sometimes in that final year, there's so much pressure to feel like you've got to make almost like a 13-year decision. But of course, as you said, the reality is actually very unlikely that many people will stay in something.
And in your last year, all you're thinking about is, I need to pass my exams. Otherwise, this has been wasted.
It's a lot to balance at the same time, isn't it? And we might come back to you on that in a second, Georgina. Helen, how about you? Underrated careers advice? Hit us with it. What have you got?
Oh, well, I guess I'd just sort of say that kind of being friendly and with anyone you work with, like you just never know when your paths might cross again in the future. And I feel like I remember when I left uni, people sometimes would say, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. I mean, with mine, it is about what you know. You need to have skills. I'm not sure I could step in. But there does come a point when paths start to cross with people that you've worked with in the past, and it could be from any sector, anywhere you've worked or met, or some meeting somewhere, or that, I don't know, those connections do sort of can happen and might help you again later on in the future. And actually, sort of everything that you do or any job you've ever had, all those skills that you learn kind of help you along the way. So even my supermarket or working at the co-op through uni has actually helped me with talking to a customer or helping someone or being proactive or how to make things look pretty on a shelf. It's very good when you've got to present or make things sort of visually merchandise things together to make them look nice. So all those skills, no matter what job or wherever you are, without realising probably help you along the way. And then I probably would also say that especially for clothing design, getting those CAD skills as well is really important, because you sort of touch on so many different areas at university, but when you get into industry, being able to use the computer and the CAD skills, Illustrator, that's really important, and a skill that's really key to then get you a job. And as soon as you've got a job, then you've got experience, and then you just keep going.
And I guess while you're at university, you've got access to those software tools usually for free, so it's a good time to refine and get better at them.
Yeah, and just give it a go. And then there's so many things that you then learn. You learn along the way. So later on, you may end up self-teaching yourself, I don't know, a new skill or a new program or something like that. But while you've got people there, actually a person that can actually teach you stuff, just absorb it all.
Absolutely. And I think it's a good point you're saying about sometimes we don't realise the skills we're kind of getting until we look back and sort of join the dots. I think anyone who's worked in any customer service, hospitality, the patience you have to develop, I think is great for working with people in any context, isn't it? It's a really, really good example. Georgina, we'll kind of come back to you. I know a more recent graduate, obviously, but I guess from your perspective, what would sort of your advice be, I suppose, or kind of really good careers advice you feel you've had so far in your career?
Yeah, I think it's probably a little bit of a mix of what Amy and Helen said. But if I could go back and tell myself, I would say just don't put as much pressure on yourself and don't feel like you have to rush into anything. Take your time, think about what you enjoyed, think about what you like and what put those things together and find something that you want to do that includes those things, sort of thing.
Such an important point. And we speak to lots of people kind of coming to the end of their degrees. I think you feel that sort of, someone described to me once as like a cliff edge, like I just don't know what's coming next, particularly maybe if I've not got a job straight away. And as you say, I think learning to take a bit of that pressure off, not easy, as you say, really helps, because you realise talking to people reflecting on their careers that actually it was quite squiggly and very rarely is kind of just one thing, or as you say, Amy, one direction and not changing at all. So it's, as you said, really good advice, sort of take that pressure off. Nichola, kind of coming over to you, underrated careers advice. What do you think? What's your key nugget of wisdom to share?
I would say now is good. It doesn't have to be perfect. We work and operate in a very fast-paced world. Sometimes 80% today is better than 100% tomorrow, because your competitors might be in the market tomorrow. And also, you're never going to launch anything perfect. It's impossible, okay? And you're going to have a review and go back and say, what have we learned? What can we change? How can we adapt? So it's back to when I said originally, have a go. Yeah, have a go. Now is good. Work with pace. And just say, yes, take every opportunity you're given. You might have loads of work. You might be asked to join a project team. You might be asked to join a social committee to help with the social events, or one of your additional training. And you might think, oh, I've got so much in my calendar. Just work a few extra hours and say yes and have a go, because the more relationships you're building cross-functionally within an organisation or externally to the organisation, the wider your network, the more skills you have, the better you're going to progress through your career.
Yes, and coming back, I guess, to what you were saying, you don't necessarily know what you're building up when you're building them up, but you kind of look back and they're there. Interesting what you're saying about kind of, now is good. Do you think that's one of the challenges maybe when transitioning out of university? And I might come back to you on this as well, Georgina, as our more recent graduate, that you're kind of moving from maybe a world where you have got sort of grade boundaries and you're trying to maybe get something to a particular level, whereas when you hit industry, actually, it's about meeting the deadline, and actually, it may not be perfect, but we need to kind of move ahead. We need to move forward. Do you think that that's part of the challenge?
Absolutely. If you're rewriting a software package and you're about to stop any goods going out of the warehouse and not make any deliveries, for most things, you're not going to get it perfect, okay? And working at pace will actually, you'll learn your lessons quicker, okay? Therefore, you can adapt your product or your process or whatever it may be quicker, okay? Therefore, you actually end up with something near perfection in the long term, a lot faster. But I'm a big one for now is good. Go with pace. Let's just give it a go. Try. What are we going to learn?
And this is kind of a common message coming back here about trying things, which is great. I mean, Georgina, I hope you don't mind, I'm just going to come back to you briefly. Did you experience kind of any of that, I guess, in terms of leaving university and moving into that first role in industry? How did you find that kind of transition?
I feel like it was quite a jumping at the deep end. It's very different going from, especially since I was in the COVID lockdown and I was on my own quite a lot of the time doing my work, to then working within a team and like communicating and just learning how to work in the corporate world. So I think it's different, but yeah, I think I enjoyed it, and you definitely need to just take the leap and go for it, sort of thing, and just throw yourself in and see how it goes.
Yeah, it's always difficult to prepare, I guess, isn't it? Because some of the stuff you just won't have come up against before. So it's just,
I think it would probably be good advice to, if any opportunities do come up where you can sort of get into like a real life workplace within your time at university, I would definitely take up the opportunities. So then once you finish, it's not such a big like leap into the real world sort of thing.
And I guess would you two reflect that, having been on placement, it felt like maybe a softer landing into the...
I think I got my job after uni because I had my experience on my placement year. I don't think I would have found it anywhere near as easy to get a job after uni without having that experience. Yeah, I found it was everything for me.
Yeah, and you get what, like you say, you get what it's like to work in an office with people.
Which is
people.
Yeah, which is hard to learn, isn't it? Because you can't really learn.
You are solo in university, even though you work in team. You are your own person. It's your deadlines. It's your grade set. But when you come to a company or in a business, it's not just you. You've got a whole team that you work with, and other people rely on you, like other teams to get projects over the line. You've got to get your bit done, but it takes a village.
Yeah, that's it. You're not silent, are you? You've got to remember everything you do has an impact on other people.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Fab. So last but not least, Tracy, there's no pressure here, but this is essentially what the podcast will end on. So
Fine, because I'm going to rock it up. So my bit of, I suppose, advice would be that you should know yourself well. You should be comfortable with your own skills and what you bring to the party. So I think it's great having loads of skills, absolutely fabulous. But if you haven't got somebody that you either aspire to be like, that's a great mentor and a great role model, that you can always think, just look at how they do that, how well they do that. I think that's equally as critical, because I think from my own perspective, I've been in roles where maybe I'm going to use the word aligned. It's a terrible word, but where I might have aligned myself with, actually, that person probably didn't lead in a nice way, do things in a way that was actually sat with me. And I think for an individual, regardless of role, you've got to do it in the right way. Whatever it is you're doing, do it in the right way and be comfortable that you're bringing the very best of yourself to that role. And I think you can do that with a great mentor, just watching people around you and think, who's rocking this place? Who gets this done? And what have they got? And what are they bringing? And I think continued self-development's important. Skill, great, but you've got to keep continuing to develop yourself. So I'm getting to the end of my career as well as the end of this podcast. So I invested, 1994, I did my degree. 2024, I got my master's. So 30 years. I had 2 kids in the middle, worked part-time, continued my career. But I thought, I need to do more to improve the way that I'm thinking. And I think, like Nichola said, the world's moving on, thinking's moving on. Keep yourself current and your own personal skill, not just your knowledge of it, but your own personal contribution to that. I think is really important.
And it's great to hear that, because I think, so often when you get to the end of a particularly big period of study, maybe like university, you've done your 3 years undergraduate degree or maybe a master's on top of that or whatever, you're kind of thinking, I never really want to study again.
So,
yeah. But here again, it's showing that, exactly as we've heard a couple of times already on the podcast, lifelong learning, it doesn't have to be something that has any particular time frame on it. It's when works for you and when fits with your career and all those sort of things.
But don't leave it too long. Make sure you're current and keeping yourself going would be my tip.
And great to hear mention of mentoring. So we'll do a bit of a shameless plug for we have our student to graduate mentoring scheme that we do with Huddersfield Business School. And we've had some really kind of good outcomes from that. But also a lot of the feedback that's come back has been sort of very similar, and that particularly for final year students, is giving them somebody, often kind of quite relatable, but someone who's sort of maybe been there and done part of the journey, so that actually you're getting those maybe rules of the game that you don't get perhaps always through the rest of your education, but, unless you know someone in that industry, it's quite hard to find out. So shameless plug there. And thank you for allowing me to
take you up on that. I think genuinely, if people are listening to this and they haven't considered that, 100% I would do that.
If you are watching this and you're interested in the student to graduate mentoring scheme, then all you need to do is just get in touch with us at the Careers Service. Or if you're just interested in mentoring generally, get in touch with the Careers and Employability Service at Huddersfield, and we can talk to you about how you might approach or kind of find a mentor. But that brings us pretty much to the end of the podcast. Sadly, it's flown by. That kind of really sort of takes us through all of the various things we wanted to talk about. And really the only thing left to be said is a massive thank you to all of you for joining us today. So to Nichola, to Tracy, Helen, Amy and Georgina, thank you for your time. And if you've been watching this or listening to the podcast and you want to find out a little bit more about Mamas and Papas and what they do, you can find their website on www.mamasandpapas.com/careers, or drop them an email on careers@mamasandpapas.com. But that is all we have time for. Again, massive thank you for joining us all and becoming our latest members of the Hud Grad Club. And we will see you all very soon.